Tusiata Avia is a acclaimed author and a poet in New Zealand. Tusiata Avia has released a poem that's going to be used, I believe, by, let me get the correct group, some Auckland performance group, Auckland Arts Festival. Now, the poem is called The Savage Colonizer, and it's about James Cook, and it's confronting. I mean, let's be honest about it. And I thought what we should do before we actually get into it, because as you know, when people talk about things like this, not many of them actually have seen or heard the bit they're talking about. It's 3.5 minutes long, but I think that we should watch the whole video, like watch the poem, because then we know what we're talking about. Mm-hmm. Now, because this is on, I think it's from Spinoff, they've put warnings all over it. We don't do that here because we don't have any broadcasting standards, and you guys know what you're getting. So let's have a look at the poem, and then we're going to go into some conversations, because as you all know, there are some free speech purists in our country, and this is poetry, and the free speech purists are coming out in force to support someone's artistic expression, especially when it comes to free speech, which is a good thing. It's a good thing. But let's play the poem first.
250th anniversary of James Cook's arrival in New Zealand. Hey, James. Yeah, you. In the white wig and that big endeavour, sailing the blue, blue ocean like a big asshole. Fuck you, bitch. James, I heard someone shoved a knife right up into the gap between your white ribs at Kealakekua Bay. I'm going to go there, make a big makahiki luau, cook a white pig, feed it to the dogs, and fuck you up, bitch. Hey, James, it's us. These days we're driving around in SUVs and looking for you. Or white men like you who might be thieves or rapists or kidnappers or murderers. Yeah. Or any of your descendants or any of your incarnations. 'Cause you know, hey, bitch, we're gonna fuck you up. Tonight, James, it's me, Leilani, Danielle, and a car full of brown girls. We find you on the corner of the Justice Precinct. You've got another woman in a headlock, and I've got my father's pig hunting knife in my fist. And we're coming to get you, sailing around in your resolution, your friendship, your discovery, and your fucking free love. Watch your ribs, James, 'cause I'm coming with kalani o pu'u, kane kapolei, kana ina, ke awe o pala, kula ili moku, who is a god, and Nua'a, who is king with a knife. And then, James, then we're gonna fuck you up for good, bitch.
And I apologize. It was stuff.
Wow.
Credit where credit's due. Stuff.co.nz put that out there. If you haven't heard that, Chewy, I've heard it now 3 or 4 times. I'm happy just to give you the floor and give you your first impressions, and then we'll start talking.
That was a lot. I know that David Seymour doesn't like this.
No.
He said
No,
as
no,
much.
no. He's a free speech purist. You're not right. You can't be right. Tell me your thoughts on this, because I don't believe that.
Look, I think it's really, really confronting. It's provoking conversation, which all good art should do. It should challenge you. I don't really think it's for me. It certainly had an emotional impact. But yeah, it's like, it's art. Not everybody's going to like it. Not everybody's going to understand it. But it exists. It could just be as simple as, it's not meant for me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think art can be meant for everybody, even if you're not the target of it. But if it's not for you, it's not for you. I mean, if you, the easiest way to think about that often with art, I guess, is paintings, isn't it? Or visual art, because people have styles and people like things that they don't like things. So let's have a look at David Seymour. Obviously, I was being fairly facetious with you, Chewy. You probably picked up on that slightly. So the advocate of free speech, this government should withdraw the $107,280 in taxpayers' money given to a racist stage show about murdering James Cook, his descendants, and white men like him with pig hunting knives, then apologize to the public for giving so much to racism in the first place. The poem goes on to suggest descendants of Cook and all white people be tracked down and stabbed. It doesn't actually suggest that. That's why I wanted to play it, because it doesn't suggest that at all. It doesn't even, like, even if there was like some kind of allegory behind it, doesn't even give an allegory to say all white people. It's not. It doesn't say that. It literally does not say that. Should be stabbed through the ribs, the pig hunting knives. The poem can be found here in all its glowing review. So remember, this is David Seymour, who is a free speech absolutist, who provides spaces for places like Stand Up for Women, because they've got a right to speak. You know, that he will go the extra mile. And we've talked about David Seymour before when it comes to things like the Māori Health Authority or being equal, based on race. It is so interesting to me that you've got a Polynesian woman who is giving her artistic expression, and that's the time that David Seymour comes in to say, nope, this is not allowed, right? And don't buy into it's all about the funding, horse shit, right? It's not all about the funding. They're saying the speech should not be allowed. No matter how much they say the speech is fine, but we don't want the funding. It's don't buy it. Don't buy the bullshit. True, what do you think about that? About the time that David Seymour, the only time I can recall where he's kind of come out against anything to do with speech, and he's on the maybe this should be reduced, is when it's a brown woman.
Yeah. Oh, every single fucking time. I'd have more respect for ACT and David Seymour, like nominally that they say that they're a libertarian party, but then they aren't whenever they want to be.
Yeah, of course.
They're not libertarian when it comes to drug legislation. They're not libertarian when it comes to free speech at all. It is very, very one-sided with them. Yeah. They are not libertarian when it comes to law and order. It annoys me. You know this. Everyone knows this.
Well, you've been annoyed then. Let me show you this. You're going to be annoyed in a second. Hello.
Oh.
Now, there's a really, like, if you're playing poker, or if you're, you know how, Chewy, when you may know this from nieces or nephews or younger people around you, when they're lying, they often explain something contrary. Like, you'll never ask for something from them. And I've had my kids and stuff say before, like, they'll bring up the chocolate that they've pinched, and we're not even talking about chocolate. So they kind of project into the atmosphere the idea of what they did because it's what they did do. So Sean Plunkett in this conversation, sorry, Karen, has spent so far 15 and a half minutes rallying against this poem. He's probably said 5 times, it's my free speech. It's my free speech. She's entitled to her free speech. It's my free speech. And he does it so much. You can just tell that he's not talking about the money. He's overemphasizing this idea about you've got the right to make this statement. He, in my opinion, my honest held belief is what he's saying is she shouldn't be saying that. I'm going to play you the last couple of minutes of this. I actually mentioned the one of the quotes from this last night when we were talking about how authoritarian Sean Plunkett is turning. Now, I didn't know I was going to play this tonight, but if you saw last night's show, you would have seen I put up a tweet that I put out on Friday. The quote is from this clip of audio where he basically, he literally says that the government has to run funding decisions through him. So let's have a listen to Sean Plunkett. Now, remember, Sean Plunkett goes on and 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 on about being free speech. The platform's about free speech, free speech, free speech, free speech, free speech. Everything's free speech until it's a brown woman who says something that he doesn't like. If you follow me on Twitter, you should go and have a look at the image that we just put up, because we gave Sean Plunkett some pearls to wear because we thought that after tonight he might want to clutch them a bit more tightly. So here's free speech absolutist Sean Plunkett talking about this poem, putting forward a case to hinder her speech.
I challenge anyone to say they are not outraged at that and they don't find it offensive. Maybe that.
Okay, I'm not outraged by that, and I don't find it offensive. There we go. We tick that one off. We'll keep going.
That's good art, but it's publicly funded art. And I believe it's publicly funded art that can do nothing other, and I'm exercising my freedom of speech, but sow division and racist tension in this country. Racial tension in this country. Now, we're going to put that, I can't believe I'm saying, we're going to put that poem, inverted columns, up on our website later today. And I want to have a conversation today. I believe in freedom of speech. I believe Tuisata Avia has the freedom to write that poem with all its anger and its vitriol and its reverse racism. She's got a right.
Oh, he said it. He said
reverse racism. But remember, racism. But I mean, if what Sean Plunkett is actually hinting at is art can't be angry, what? Art can't be angry?
Of course it can.
What are you talking about?
Of course it fucking can.
I'll give you an analogy at the end of this, and the analogy, I almost am going to say this arrogantly, will stop anyone who thinks like this and will stop this conversation. We'll just keep going with Karen.
And I guess she's got a right to call it art.
I guess she's got a right. I guess you'll have
But she doesn't have a right to take public funds, and the government doesn't have the right, without my permission, to publish and promote crap like that.
Without his permission.
I expect better, and I expect more, and I expect public accountability for public funds. And if she wants to sell that privately or find people who'll pay and go and see it, knock yourself out, sister. That's freedom of speech.
There you go.
No, it's
Sean
not.
Plunkett.
Sean Plunkett doesn't know what freedom of speech is.
No, he doesn't know
We've talked about this before. Freedom of speech is the government can't come in and arrest you for saying the thing that you just said.
Yeah. So let me paint you a picture, okay? This is a Pacific Island woman talking about Pacific Island teenagers. The way I read it is still being impacted by the effects of colonization. Kind of going, wish you'd never fucking turned up, right? And some people would think that what happened to Indigenous people around the world is much like a genocide, right? Once they were colonized. If this poem was about 3 Jewish teenage girls doing that to Adolf Hitler, no one would care about it. It would probably be applauded and accepted. If the subject matter was Hitler and the teenagers who were going after Hitler were 3 Jewish girls, this wouldn't be a conversation, which raises the question, why is it a conversation? Because it's 3 brown girls going after someone. And look, I'm not the community, so I'm not the person to say this with absolutism, but that I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of thought akin to what happened there. I'm not comparing completely, but you know, genocides that were atrocities that were committed against their people by this invader. And I just think if we look at it that way, and then come back to the complaints about this, like if all of that poem was the same, but it was instead of James Cook, it was Adolf Hitler, and instead of some Pacific Island names, it was Jewish names, we wouldn't be talking about this. Now what?
It's almost a genre of film, is the old revenge power fantasy in that. Like you mentioned Jewish people getting revenge on Hitler. You've got Inglourious Bastards.
Yeah.
You know, revenge fantasy has always been something that people have played around with in stories and that sort of thing. Like it's a gimme for them, because they can turn around and they can claim that it's reverse racism, which I'll stress again is not something that exists.
It doesn't exist.
It's just racism.
Yeah.
But I don't like it when they use the term reverse racism, because it suggests that it's a one-way pipe. It's fine going the other way, but it comes back. No, I don't like it. Yeah, it's just a small reversal provokes such a response.
Yeah. Racism is very simple. It was when one race subjugates or criticizes or thinks lesser of another race because of their race. That's it. So in other words, there's no reverse. There's one race looking down on another race because of their race. That's racism. So
I'm going to put up a tweet that I just read, and I think it's really good.
Go.
Okay. Government should support art that is challenging and provocative and provide opportunities to engage with the history of colonialism, even if later-day colonists think that it's a more egregious crime than the crime of literally stealing an entire nation from their people. That is the real freedom that we're otherwise denied, because victims of colonialism are often not themselves able to bear the full cost and risk of making that art, because the whole social and economic structure that would have supported it was stolen from them along with the country. So, yeah, I can put up with Sean Plunkett and David Seymour being a little bit uncomfortable. I can put up with my own discomfort in some of the language and the tone in that poem. It doesn't affect me, though.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't an existential threat to my existence, and it never will be. Like, James Cook has had fantastic press for a couple of 100 years, and it's only now in the last 30 or 40 years that we're turning around going, maybe some bad shit went down. Yeah. Like, I find it funny that people sort of commemorate his fuck up in Hawaii. I love that for him.
We're going to add one more little part, and it's only a couple of minutes long, maybe 3 minutes long. And this is Stephen Wainwright, the Creative New Zealand CEO. He went on News Talk ZB to talk about Tusiata Avia's latest project and the funding that has gone into the Auckland Arts Festival, because they're adapting it into a stage show. So that's the other thing that's, a big hubbub. It's that this is being adapted into a stage show, and some people don't want to see that. I tell you what, it also kind of feels a bit like I don't want to be too dramatic here and maybe use emotive language, but the whole critical race theory bullshit in America. What basically the conservatives in America are saying is we don't want to be made to feel bad about what happened to black people in America and to the indigenous people. Mm-hmm. It kind of, to me, I'm not saying it's an exact parallel, but smacks a little bit of that. It's got the same stink about it as that, having to now think about how other people were impacted in a negative way, and potentially those things still flow on today on some level from things that happened to their communities, their countries, their maraes, their villages 200, 300 years ago. So let's just have a listen to Creative New Zealand CEO talking to Heather Duplessis-Allen. I don't think she's going to bully him because he's an adult, but let's just have a listen to the conversation.
Including a poem about murdering James Cook and other white people like him. Creative New Zealand is helping to fund a stage show based on the poetry for the Auckland Arts Festival. And it's drawing some criticism. Creative New Zealand CEO Stephen Wainwright is with me now. Hi, Stephen.
G'day, Heather. How are you?
Yeah, I'm okay. Thank you. This is pretty violent. Is it okay to fund this kind of stuff?
It's interesting what's been written about it, because actually it's a work of the imagination. So it's not like a manifesto or anything like that. So I think it should be read in that context. there are certainly some, well, as it says, there's some violent language, but of course, you know, there's many
pieces of art with violent
the colour
language.
purple to the clockwork orange, whatever, that have violent language. It's a really terrific book of poems, actually. It's one of 43. I would really urge your listeners to go to the library or the bookshop and have a read. It's very stimulating.
So ACT has drawn attention to this, Stephen, and the point that they make is the government is trying really hard to you know, crack down on hate speech and stop people having hatred from one race to another.
So this is a really important, speaking of dog whistles, right? Heather Duplessis Allen asks a question about hate speech, and he says it's not hate speech. And she goes, oh, no, I'm not saying it's hate speech, but it's kind of like hate speech. So just have a listen to the process.
Isn't this kind of exactly the thing they're trying to get rid of?
Well, no, I would really encourage you and anyone else to actually read the poem. I think to call this hate speech is a, you know,
I'm not, Stephen.
An enormous stretch.
Please don't.
It's actually a criticism of racism and Cook's legacy.
Right. I'm not calling it hate speech. I'm just saying they're trying to crack down on hate speech, and this feels quite violent and like it
but
might
it's
be
kind of like
skirting there. Stephen, listen. It's kind of weird, though, isn't it? In a day and age where we're talking about Roald Dahl having to be rewritten so we don't say the offensive word fat, that we have got, we're funding work right now that talks about going around and trying to F people up.
Yeah, I accept that some of the language is strong and it's not to everybody's taste, absolutely. But it's also figurative language. And, you know, I think the counterfactual which would be that, you know, we censor people from expressing their thoughts according to some narrow version of what is correct would also be troubling.
Okay, well then go on, Stephen. Tell me that you oppose the Roald Dahl rewriting.
I actually, this is probably a shameful
got to
thing
get your
to
culture
say.
war point in there.
I'm not very familiar with Roald Dahl's work, although my son loved it very much.
Stephen,
so I can't speak authoritatively on that.
I don't think you should be the CEO of Creative New Zealand if you've never read Roald Dahl. He's a legend. Well, he's problematic, but he's a legend, isn't he?
Oh, he can't.
Well, he probably is. But see, we're primarily interested in New Zealand writers and literature. To be honest with you, Heather.
Shocking, Stephen. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
And then apparently she finished the conversation by doing this.
You went to Fiji. Are you serious?
Sorry. All right, I'll turn that off. I'm sorry, Joe. I'll turn it off. Just for people who are finding it in the chat as well. I was concerned for Karen Plunkett today because I thought his head might explode if people talked about this in a different way. So we did indeed give him a set of pearls today. So indeed he could clutch them tonight. You know, when possibly some people started talking about this in a different way.